Big, juicy one, definitely popcorn time. Chelsea against Manchester City. Is this the elite game of the season so far? We, of course, want to hear your views and opinion on that. Send us a hashtag at Weekend Warm Up. Please join us on the show.
Loved that.
What?
That's beautiful. Thumbs up. So, how much are we looking forward to this one?
I'll tell you what this game is, Lee. It's one of them, isn't it? Come on. Can't
what does
wait.
that mean?
That means I can't wait. Let's just get it on. Let's get it going. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Are we going to learn a lot about who might be the title favourites after this, or is it too early to say that, Leroy?
Look, I think we both know these two are going to be right in the mix. I think these are the two outstanding sides in the Premier League at the moment, and no disrespect to Liverpool and Man United. I've just got a feeling that their managers will just step it up, and they'll step it up this weekend. Been really impressed with Chelsea, which I'm not surprised about. But look, they've had the adversity at times, but the way they've dealt with it during the games has been fantastic. Man City haven't dealt with it as well, but we know that Man City always take time to warm up. A little bit like myself, you know, they take my time. You know, you're a lot into it. I take a little bit more time to warm up, and that's why I see Man City.
And this is normally the game for Chelsea over the years, where you think they always get going against Chelsea. Not under Thomas Tuchel, but over the years you think this has produced some unbelievable fixtures, some games.
And on a big weekend of heavyweight boxing, to coin a boxing phrase, styles make fights. And the way that these two set up, Chelsea maybe a little bit more pragmatic, Manchester City expansive, always get for a really, really entertaining fixture.
It is always entertaining. You know, Thomas Tuchel's got it right on many occasions against Man City. He likes to play on the counter-attack. Man City will always play that high line. Timo Werner's come into the mix in the last few games, and I think he'll be on the bench. But when you've got Lukaku, who's very quick, he's very mobile, he'll be able to play that way as well. But to be fair to Chelsea, they got it wrong a couple of times. That's why everybody said, oh, what a tactical genius. Well, he got it wrong in the first half in a few games. That's why he's had to get it right in the second half. I think he'll get it right from the start. And it'd be interesting, Man City, all their players are back. De Bruyne's back, Foden's back. Not a clue what team Man City are going to play, but it's going to be an excellent game.
All of a sudden now, the pressure's on Pep's men. They can't afford to lose this one, because we'll all be looking at the game, especially if they don't score, and say a lack of strike is going to cost you. If Chelsea can steal a march and get a win, you go, wow, Chelsea are back.
And you think about the Chelsea that Thomas Tuchel actually took over, they were a very different looking Chelsea side to the side we're seeing now, Don.
They are. They're steely now, aren't they? I think under Frank, he'd done an amazing job, and we know all the reasons why. And he was producing great football, but he was producing basketball matches, wasn't he? 3-3 against West Brom. I think they lost it 5-2 against West Brom at the Bridge. And they were great to watch. Now you're looking at an elite manager, and you're looking at Chelsea going, I know exactly what I'm going to get or what I'm going to see. And that's all from the manager. And it takes building blocks to get there. And I think the big building block for them was at Anfield a couple of weeks ago, down to 10 men at Anfield. They could easily have lost the game down to 10. They grinded, they worked hard, he made good substitutions. You can see it, they're all in it. Azpilicueta's becoming a real leader for them. And you're looking at Chelsea and you're going, there's no weak links. Everyone at Chelsea now, and Lukaku's one of them, where you get to a point in your career when you get onto your highest peak, and it's how long you can stay there. Lukaku's on that wavelength now where he can't improve. He's got to stay there for as long as possible. And there's so many Chelsea players, I think, feeling the same.
So here's the thing. They've hit such a level at the moment that it's hard to imagine exactly where they were when Thomas Tuchel took over. And his first and main remit was to get them back into those Champions League spots. And Leroy, I think it's fair to say he'd done that with aplomb.
He's done that really well. I was just looking at that table and I'm thinking, what was the team at that time? Well, when Thomas Tuchel came in, I just remember him leaving Mason Mount on the bench. Everybody was like, what's he doing? But he kind of was setting down a marker. That the experienced players were the players who were really important to me, and that's what Frank didn't do. Don's already mentioned Azpilicueta. You look at Rudiger, you look at Alonso, you look at the change of goalkeeper in Mendy, you look at Thiago Silva. That Christensen wasn't really involved. That back five is a whole new back five, and Thomas Tuchel has to take the credit for that. And in doing that, it's helped the younger players. Mason Mount's played really well. You know, the young players who are coming, like Reece James, are coming in and out. It's helped them. But they are the core of the team, and that experience has been magnificent for him. And when you are in trouble, talking about Chelsea getting in trouble, people say, oh, is it about the manager making... It's not, it's about your experienced players.
Just look at that, Lee, lost 6 in this graphic here. They might not lose 6 all season.
Exactly, and actually, do you remember Thomas Tuchel's first press conference? He said, we want to create a team that's no fun to play against. So he took them from there, and actually, if the league started when Thomas Tuchel took over, they would be second. City still above them.
That's your best ever bit of work that season.
Do you like the way I did that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Made that happen.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but
when you went like that, it
did you like how I went?
Perfect scene.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, City's still above them. But that just goes to show the remarkable job that Thomas Tuchel's done.
And where they've come from, like you said. It's not like they've been second or third for a little while and they're bridging the gap. They've had to come from a long way behind. And now, all of a sudden, with a good couple of windows, and that's why I mentioned Frank as well, he must take a few plaudits in the windows that he spent, or the lack of spending, but the players that he got in. Then Thomas Tuchel just went out and got elite players after the money Frank spent. Right. It's to get them closer to City. And I like the way he says, I like the way he comes in and he says, we're going to hunt down Man City. That was his words, we're going to hunt them down.
No fear.
No fear, but great for the players and great for the fans to grab onto.
Don's just spoken about the players that have come in, Leroy, but I wonder if the biggest changes is utilising the players that were already at the club to provide that very firm and solid base at the defence. Yeah,
I mean, when you've got someone like Aspilicueta who's won, I don't know how many league trophies, played in different positions, you've got to utilise that. I just think that was put aside. And that vast experience is just, it's worth its weight in gold. And I'm looking at Chelsea now, I was a little bit surprised that Man City were ahead of them, in all honesty. You know, from my point, I thought, well, Chelsea got like head-to-head, it'll be really tighter than that. But I just felt that Thomas Tuchel did the right thing. First thing you go, and you've got to set a marker down. And every great manager Don's worked with and I've worked with, they set a marker in. And they get the influential players, not even the best players, the influential players on their side. Well, and we're talking about Thomas Tuchel, he's a great coach. Well, I'll tell you what, I bet those senior players have been helping those younger players just as much as he has.
And very quickly, before we move on, if you had a choice to play under either manager, who would you choose and why?
I mean, we're splitting hairs, say Pep. I'd want to learn under Pep.
Yeah.
I think I would love Thomas Tuchel, and I'm not sitting on the fence. I think he'd be an unbelievable coach for what I like, but Pep's still the best for me.
I agree with Don. Pep.
OK, thanks. Great. Well, let's head to the fifth member of the Dream Team as we cross to Stamford Bridge to hear from Io. And Manchester City fans are going to get a horrible reminder of their failings in the summer when they arrive. Io, aren't they?
Oh, man, do not mention the Champions League final to Manchester City fans. Thomas Tuchel gets one over Pep Guardiola once again in that final. They won 1-0 and they lifted the Champions League with Thomas Tuchel for the first time in his career. So it was wonderful for him. Not so much for Manchester City fans. I'm now joined by Seb Zani, actually, from Canal Plus. And we're going to talk about the man over your shoulder, N'Golo Kanté, a man you will know well from France. Pivotal to Chelsea in the Champions League final. Walks away with man of the match, but also last week he was so pivotal to changing Chelsea's fortunes in that match.
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, in the Champions League, he got man of the match in the semi-finals, in the final. He was a one-man midfield the whole game, you know. He was just making the difference, all these interceptions. He's got that ability to anticipate where the pass is coming from. And as you mentioned, last weekend against Tottenham, it was the same, you know. He came on at half-time, and what was a bit of a weird first half for Chelsea became excellent in the second half, thanks to Kanté, because, you know, he was just getting into those heels of the opposition and delivering those passes forward and eventually scoring that goal. It's Thomas Tuchel who's given him over the time, you know, a bit more of an attacking role, even though he's still a great, you know, holding midfielder. And, you know, I think that's where N'Golo Kanté is best. It's, you know, that relation between the holding and the attacking, and hopefully he'll score many more goals through that.
He's quite a unique player, really, and obviously for his on-field prowess, but also a player that seems to have charmed fans all across the world, here in the Premier League for sure, but also in France. I don't think fans will forget that, you know, the scenes after France won the World Cup and the players were throwing him in the air, singing a wonderful song about him. How did people view him in France?
Well, you know, in France, you know, you've got a league that's quite brutal with a lot of tackles, and you've got players who aren't really shy off the pitch. You know, they like to be out there, they like to shout. And Kanté's got that unique attitude about him. You know, he's humble, he's got humility, he's really shy, and I think people love that about him. Maybe people in France who aren't experts about football because they only watch the national team don't really realise what he does on the pitch, but it's really that character he has off the pitch. You know, the fact that he didn't even dare kiss the trophy after the World Cup. It was the same after winning the Champions League. And, you know, they had this song about him, N'Golo Kanté, he's small, he's kind, and he stopped Lionel Messi. And everyone was singing that even at the Elysee, which is the equivalent of Downing Street in France. You know, they were singing that in the courtyard afterwards. And, you know, he's always got that big smile on his face, and people just love him for those reasons.
I'll tell you another player who's really shone for Chelsea since he arrived here was Mendy, I should say. We don't get many African keepers here in the Premier League, but a player that's literally hit the ground running. Were people talking about him in France before he moved to the Premier League?
Yeah, they were. Obviously, he had quite a tough time. He was unemployed for a while, and then he got opportunities to play for Reims and then Rennes. And he helped Rennes massively to qualify for European competitions before he then came to Chelsea. He was already a great goalkeeper in Ligue 1, but it's when he came to Chelsea that people really realised that he could be one of the greatest goalkeepers in history.
For sure. And actually, I was doing a little bit of research before I came in. We're in Hammersmith and City region here in London, and actually French is the most spoken language outside English here in this region. So they clearly love it here. Now, let's talk about Thomas Tuchel, because it'd be really interesting to get a French angle on this. How is he viewed in France?
Well, obviously he managed PSG for a few seasons, and I think people loved him. There were a few surveys back when he was managing PSG, and people loved him, just like the Chelsea fans loved him when he came here in his press conferences. You know, he's got a big sense of humour. He's always happy to come and talk to journalists after the matches with a big smile on his face. I mean, I've done a few post-match interviews with him, and he's always happy to speak French. He learned French when he was in France, so I think for those reasons, people really liked him. Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's exactly the same. Journalists talk about how he picked up the English language or spoke it very well, but also it was always that relationship with journalists. Seb, thank you very much. But also, more importantly, I'm really interested to see who Dom picks for his starting 11 for Chelsea. And you, Leroy.
That's a bit of an afterthought there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you, Leroy.
I like him.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm going to go with the Chelsea side who started against Tottenham, Don Hare. You know, we're going to talk about Kante. Came on, influenced that game brilliantly, but he was carrying a little bit of an injury, and that's why Thomas Tuchel introduced him at half-time. I'm looking at your Man City side, and how have you got...
Strong.
The bench, I've got Mahrez, Foden and Sterling all on the bench. What's that all about?
I know.
We did.
It's because it's unpredictable.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I'm thinking that's the 11 Pep's going to go with.
Really?
But then it wouldn't surprise me if Riyad Mahrez played instead of Jesus.
Okay.
There's injuries everywhere.
Yeah.
They've got Ake in there because Laporte and Stones are struggling.
Yeah.
And then Gundogan's struggling as well. Rodri's struggling. Mahrez, Foden.
Did well. Midweek.
Foden's just back midweek.
Yeah.
But the man, Raheem Sterling, who we're going to touch on now, who can't get his way into this starting 11, in my humble opinion, should be in this starting 11.
OK, what did you think of his performance against Southampton in that false line, centre-forward position? I mean, he's played there before. How do you think he did?
Do you know what, Leroy? I actually thought he'd done quite well.
Yeah?
He didn't get his goal, but what I saw in him, which I always see in Raheem Sterling, I don't know why people question his vision, his technique, the way he plays the game. I just see a player that's really intelligent. I've got him picked up here. And then what I like about this is even on that half turn there, you know, you might think his eyes might be drawn back into here to pop one off. He knows in the peripheral vision, he knows there's runners coming from everywhere. So that's football intelligence. Then has he got the weight to pass to try and put it into the path? Gundogan's running from deep. Well, you see the little weighted ball he's put into him there. That's perfect. So Raheem Sterling can play off the left. He can play off the right. He can play as a number 9. This one's a good run. It's a typical Man City move where they try and get bodies across the 6-yard box. Just didn't quite get the delivery. This is lovely, where he picks up a little ball there. You see his intentions. He's trying to fire it in the top right-hand corner as we look. So he's all over the park. He's down here 1 minute. He's through the middle. He's off the left. So he's roaming. So it shows you where he's trying to problem solve. All these little areas that I see Raheem Sterling, way to pass. Knows exactly where to play it. Could have done with a reverse pass. I just see a player that might be lacking a little bit of confidence, but I don't see it in his general play. And this was the goal that he had chalked off, and rightly so. It was a great ball in from De Bruyne. And he just went a fraction early from the Phil Foden header. But I think he's the type of player, Leroy, I don't know if you agree. Liverpool last season, when they were playing people like Sadio Mane, and Sadio Mane works unbelievably hard. And by his standards, and he said it himself, it was one of his poorest seasons. He worked in 3-4 years consistently at a really high level. He's the type of player you play from bad form into good form. And I think Raheem Sterling's one of them. If he's going through bad form, I think you play him and you say, come on, because I'm confident you'll go from bad to good.
I think you're absolutely right. I think on the Euros he was England's best player. I think it's because the manager absolutely and totally believed in him. Now, I touched on it before about the Chelsea side. This is the team they started off with against Tottenham in that first half, Don. And I wanted to just highlight the change that Thomas Tuchel made. And again, we're saying Thomas Tuchel, what a genius. Yeah, he's obviously a great coach, but he got it wrong in the first half. And I've got some examples of it here. And I'm just going to play this through and look at the Chelsea shape. As the ball comes out from Mendy, the problem for Chelsea was their shape with the back three in place. There's the back three, Thiago Silva and Rudiger. That's Jorginho in midfield, and they always want to bounce it in off Rudiger. The problem for Chelsea was that with Alonso playing so high up the pitch, so I just circle him there again, Kovacic was just going in that space to cover Alonso, because what you need to do, and that's why Alonso's played so well. But what it did for Mason Mount, who wants to play high up the pitch and wants to be receiving the ball in this sort of area, it made it very difficult for him, because it left this great big space in here. And this is where Mason Mount had to try and drop into, and it made it really easy. I think it was Dele Alli to see where he was coming from for Spurs to get the press on.
Well, also as well, you mentioned what that does to the opposition. If you're Spurs now, you are thinking high up the pitch, you can put a real press on everywhere. You are confident because that shaded area there, you need a blue shirt in there.
Exactly.
Where you think Kante might be.
And what it did from there, and just as the ball goes back in here, I'm just going to pause it there. What Spurs did really good, they cut off the pass line, just take it back slightly. And this was Son who played in that central position. They cut off that passing line into Jorginho, who's all free.
And that ball to Lukaku's a hard one.
It's a tough one. And it made Chelsea try to play that ball. And I play it through at normal speed now. And they failed. And Tottenham picked up the pieces. It eventually comes into Lukaku, but it's nice and tight on him. They win the ball and they got a free kick. And this was a problem all through that half. Again, I'll just pause it there again. Look at Jorginho. He's just there at the top. And there, you see, Dele Alli is trying to get to him from that position. Son is cutting off that passing line.
See, when you're trying to play out from there, Lee, and you always think, well, if you've got the four Tottenham boys, you've got to put them in red. If you've got the four Tottenham boys closing down, you think there must be a spare man. Chelsea's spare man's out there. That's an impossible ball from a centre-half to try and find.
Exactly, and they've left him, and so they've got the numbers in those central areas. And I'll just play it through again here. And it just caused Chelsea a problem in the first half. A couple of occasions they did get out of, but in the main, Tottenham on the front foot, and they did it really well, and they kept Chelsea pinned in. This was the chat I thought was really important, because I think, I'm talking about Cesar Azpilicueta and his influence. You're saying he had the problem in front of him. I'll just pause it there. And what they did, they brought Kante on, and what he did, he just started in that area next to Jorginho. They're further up the pitch as well. This was right at the start of the second half. And because they're further up the pitch, what they did, they influenced the game without the ball. The first thing they did was get a press on.
Yeah. And you see the screen in front. Three blue shirts, no space for Tottenham to try and play into. And
they got a press on, and they won, and they got good possession high up the pitch. For the first 10-15 minutes of this game, Tottenham didn't get out of their half. And you see Kante now getting in those positions. It's a shorter pass into his feet and starting to influence the game. And as the game wore on, because they were in Tottenham's half, this happened. And obviously, I think he got that goal. I don't know how, but he got the goal.
He's just had a few little knocks of late, hasn't he, Kante? So only when you're trying to judge from the outside looking in, it's how fit he can actually be, N'Golo Kante. But if he's fit, you play him.
It's a fantastic option, isn't it, in that midfield?
Two great benches. I mean, great benches and unbelievable 22 on the pitch, whichever Tuchel or Pep goes for.
You're absolutely right. So we've done a lot of talking about Chelsea's midfield, and for good reason, when they've got players like this one.
And I don't mean Man City psychological. I mean what happens to other teams when you play against Man City. And you look over the years and you see Aguero playing, you see different centre-forwards playing. It's a different mindset for the opposition. Now I think if you're playing against Man City and you're seeing a Raheem Sterling as a false nine, or you're seeing a Jesus or a Gundogan, I would imagine two centre-backs and a back four would actually quite fancy it. You're coming up against Jesus or Aguero and you think how prolific Aguero's been over the years. You maybe step back 5 or 10 yards, you'd be a little bit more defensive. I know what it's like when you're playing against the greatest of sides in the Premier Leagues and all of a sudden they're just starting to fade away and all of a sudden your mindset changes. You think, we can get some joy against these. And I think a lot of teams are looking at City saying they're not as potent as what they used to be.
I mean, what's really interesting looking at that, Leroy, I mean, it's not just filled up with Manchester United and Liverpool's, that, you know, Southampton and Huddersfield and Wolves, with all due respect. And this week they come up against a side that we know, Chelsea, they've only conceded 1 goal this season, and that was from a set piece. So they're not going to get many opportunities this weekend either.
Well, you think that. But what I will say about Chelsea, and you're right, I haven't conceded from open play all season. But they can see that Mendy was terrific against Aston Villa, and they won that game 3-0, very, very fortunate. Well, Tottenham were excellent, had chances, which they didn't really take. And so Chelsea, I know people saying, oh, magnificent, I'm conceded the goal. Chelsea have had their bad moments in games, and I think it's the Man City side who can take advantage of that. So, look, this is an even game at this moment in time. And that's because we've got, looking at the Chelsea side, we think is playing magnificent, and we look at the Man City side, we think are below par. And that's why we think it's an even game. Yeah. And the stat you showed before, with Man City, they won the league at a canter. You can say about whatever you want about the centre-halves, loving not playing against Aguero, but they didn't love not playing against Aguero last season. So don't underestimate this Man City side. They'll like the situation of people talking to Chelsea up and all these Lukaku's going to change it. They'll love that. With De Bruyne back, that is massive.
Also, if we look ahead, City have a big week of football. Not only... Oh, sorry. Oh, no. I'm losing my powers. Oh, there we go. But look at that. Yeah. I mean, Don, so Chelsea away, PSG away, and Liverpool away.
So we were talking before, if you're Pep now and you've got these fixtures coming up, where do you try and prioritise? Where do you try and say, we'll pick our best 11? Because they are monster games. Yeah, every single one of them. So he's not the type of manager that's going to play his stronger side in that one, in that one, and that one. It's going to have to be, can we get Phil Foden up to speed? Can we get De Bruyne up to speed? Can we get John Stones back? Can we get Laporte back? Can we try and do something to bolster the team? The squad's very good. And you've got people like Cole Palmer, who scored midweek, who's starting to force his way a little bit closer. So the squad is very good, but it's not particularly a squad that wins these games. I say that sort of loosely because you can rotate. But you've got to pick what you think is your very strongest side to beat Chelsea, PSG and Liverpool.
Right, so whilst that's there, of course, I have to put you guys on the spot.
Always.
What do they get out of these 3 games? Because I really think, like Don's just pointed out, there is a link between all 3 with how he's going to squad up. How's he get on against Chelsea, PSG and Liverpool in that order?
Loss, win, draw.
Ooh. Draw, win, draw.
Ooh. Controversial.
Everyone's trying to work that out. What's what you just said there?
Draw, win, draw. Draw, win, draw.
Okay.
Draw, win, draw.